So look, normally on this channel I talk about pretty mainstream stuff. Superhero this, blockbuster that, but sometimes I like to make a video that probably won't get any views, but it's just something that I'm really passionate about and that I want to talk about. And today is one of those days. So, let's talk about my favorite film of 2017 so far, Baby Driver.
What are you listening to? Music.
That's right, you tell him, baby.
Yeah, no subtlety up front with this review. I love this movie so much. My goal with this video is basically, if you for some reason haven't heard of this film or aren't planning on seeing it, I want to change that. Please go see Baby Driver. It is phenomenal in pretty much every way. Now, for some odd reason, this is the most excited I've been for a film in a long time. In fact, I can't actually remember another time where I was this giddy going into the cinema. I love the trailers for this movie. I've watched this movie's trailer more than any other trailer ever. I love the premise, the director, the cast. I became a tad bit obsessed with this. You can ask any of my friends. I haven't shut up about this film for months now. Every time I see a red car in the street, I mention Baby Driver. I even went out and bought these sunglasses so I could look a little more like Baby. And yes, I've been listening to this film's music for a while, but we'll get to that later. I mean, where to even start with this film? Let's go with the cast first. Ansel Elgort. I really liked him in The Fault in Our Stars, so I was curious to see what he would do next, and he's great in this. He doesn't do a lot of talking, but he still manages to convey everything Baby is feeling really well, and he just gives an extremely likable performance. Lily James is really good as Deborah, and her and Ansel have amazing chemistry. Like, you really buy into the fact that they love each other. There's a decent chunk of this film towards the middle where there isn't a lot of action, and it's more just about their relationship. And in another film that might get boring, but because these two were so good together, and because of the direction by Edgar Wright, it's still really engaging. Jamie Foxx is awesome as Bats. I saw this with my granddad, and his first words coming out were, "That Jamie Foxx sure was a nasty fellow," and I think that sums up his performance pretty well. Kevin Spacey puts in an excellent performance. He's super funny, and his character is also really interesting, in ways that I won't spoil here, and Spacey pulls that off perfectly. John Hamm is amazing as Buddy. His dynamic with Ayaza Gonzalez as Darling, I'm sorry for the mispronunciation, is super fun to watch, and every other performance, even the ones that aren't that big, like John Bernthal and Flea, are still really good. Now, like I mentioned briefly, this film is directed by Edgar Wright, who in the past few months has become one of my favorite directors. If you haven't watched his other 4 films, do yourself a favor and fix that. Edgar Wright is an extremely talented and hardworking filmmaker. There are so many little details to notice about each of his films, so you can watch them countless times and still pick up on new things. I've seen Hot Fuzz 9 times in just about 3 to 4 months now, and I enjoy it just as much, if not more, every time I watch it. And amazingly, every time I watch it, I somehow still manage to pick up on new details each time. Same goes for his other movies as well, so I'm sure I'll be rewatching this multiple times over. And he really brings his A-game to this. This is such a stylish film, and every scene is such a joy to watch. In terms of how this compares to his other work, I'd say at the moment, this is my second favorite of his, behind Hot Fuzz. As far as the action scenes in this film, yeah, they're just as amazing as you would hope. If you've seen anything about this movie, you probably already know this, but in case you don't, the action scenes, and largely the entire movie, was written around the music. So in the action scenes, rather than just having music playing over the top while chaos unfolds, everything in the action is choreographed to go along perfectly to the beat of the music. And it's just stunning to watch unfold. I love that kind of thing. Edgar Wright said something about seeing the collision of sound and music.
Seeing the collision of music and visuals was a big thing for me at a young age.
That's exactly the kind of stuff I love in action. Hell, in the little short action films I've made myself, I've tried to do that, just in a bit of a less professional way. Also, the fact that they didn't use a lot of CG and did most of this stuff practically really shows, and adds a lot to these action set pieces. Now I guess we can also talk about the incredible soundtrack. The music in this is fantastic, and unlike a film like, let's say, Suicide Squad, where for a lot of it seems like they just said, hey, this scene is kind of boring, let's add a song over it that people like, even if it doesn't really fit. Here, the song choices are extremely deliberate and well thought out, and describe not only the tone of the scene, but also sometimes the lyrics literally describe the scene itself. Plus, action scenes set to awesome rock music are always just gonna be a lot of fun to watch. Also, because I've been listening to some of this music for months now, I now feel really familiar with a lot of these songs, and some of this is now just some of my favorite music, period. And I think most people can agree that when you know a song really well and it suddenly kicks in a movie, there's something about that familiarity that makes it that much cooler. Bell Bottoms in the opening was awesome, but I knew it was gonna be there, but when Hocus Pocus started playing, I just started grinning like a madman. Also, this movie was really relatable in a few ways to me, and I'm willing to bet I'm not the only one. Basically because I also love doing things to music, like walking to a shop, for example, and dancing to the beat a little bit and singing along and feeling like everything's set to the rhythm. As embarrassing as it may be, I've also lip-synced along to B.A.B.Y. pretty much exactly like Baby did in the film, so that was just a lot of fun for me to see personally. Look, I know that I've talked about a lot of the subjective little details that I personally really liked about this film, but if you can't relate to any of that, don't feel like you won't enjoy it, because it's still just a crazy kick-ass romp regardless. It's a really funny movie too. I'd say it's less of a comedy than Wright's other films, which were basically jokes all the time, but there are still a lot of moments that made me burst out laughing, mostly coming from Spacey, Ham, and Foxx. This movie is rated R, which surprised me a bit, but don't worry, it's nothing super extreme. There's no nudity, but there is quite a bit of cursing, and there are a few bloody scenes, one in particular that really caught me off guard. But this isn't Saw or anything like that. The film is well paced, extremely well written, the few emotional moments actually hit pretty well, the tense scenes in the film are also really well done and even made me a little anxious sometimes, and the movie has some awesome one-liners, which I think I'll be quoting for a while. Really, this movie just reminded me once again why I love watching movies and why I want to make them. And it proved to me that despite how great superhero films and franchise blockbusters can be, original movies these days are the ones that I'm loving the most. As far as what I didn't like, nothing. Like I mentioned, the movie does slow down a bit towards the middle, at least in terms of action, but I didn't have a problem with that. It was still interesting stuff to me, seeing Baby and Deborah's characters and relationship develop. And besides, if you're just here for insane action, it more than makes up for that in the last act of this film, which is almost entirely crazy, amazing action. So in conclusion, this is easily my favorite film of the year so far, even above Logan and Get Out. I was ridiculously excited for it, and it somehow lived up to and exceeded all my expectations. I know I'm going to rewatch this many times, and this might end up in my top 10 movies of all time the more I watch it. I just love this film with the biggest smile on my face. Baby Driver easily gets a 10 out of 10. So those were my thoughts on Baby Driver. What did you think of it? Let me know all of your thoughts down below in the comments. While you're at it, be sure to like this video, check out my Instagram and Twitter at BHL_Hudson, and subscribe for more videos like the one you just watched. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.